Who recognises that badge, then I wonder? I know I do. It's my Mk1 Renault 5, of course. So, I hope everyone's doing okay in lockdown. I know I definitely am now. The Renault 10 and the Mk1 5 are now swap places because obviously I'm a little bit bored, I haven't got much to do. So I bought the Mk1 5 up so I can get started on it. To give you a bit of background on the car itself, which is a 1975 Renault 5 TL, which has got the 956cc engine and a little 4-speed gearbox. I bought it 4 years ago. It was owned consecutively by its first owner until 2002, and the dealership called Denton Motors in Brighton had maintained it from day one, so it's got a consecutive full stamped service history on it. In 2002, it was no longer a daily driver for its first owner because they passed away. It was passed on to the proprietor of the garage so that it could be looked after properly. It was sold on to a collector and then someone who collected it as well as used it a little bit, but it didn't really do an awful lot for the following 14 years. After an 8-year search, since I was 11 years old to when I was 19, this car came up for sale, and it was only because this car's younger brother, a Renault 5 Turbo 2, was in the same garage as it when I first saw it, and that turbo took me to my school prom. So I saw it. In fact, here is actually on that note a photo. There you go. That's a photo of me in the Turbo 2 that was in the same garage as this car. A couple of years after that, I got a message from the owners of them saying that they'd relocated, but this car was still stuck in Essex, and I was basically given first refusal on having this car, and let's just say that I took it. I spent the 2 months I had to wait to view the car speaking to every enthusiast who had owned one before to make sure the price was right for the condition of the car, and I think I sort of half knew the answer already because I'd been offered ones that needed a hell of a lot more work for a lot more money. During the search, the one thing I was looking for was an early car with an umbrella gear stick, which was what these cars originally shared with the Renault 4. After 1973, this floor shifter was an optional fitment, and basically this car had that. And it was an optional fitment until facelift came in later on in the 70s. So yeah, it was a little bit disappointing that it wasn't the floor shift one, but it's a Mk1 5 and I've always wanted one, so I'm not complaining. But yeah, so a couple of years later I got given first refusal on having a look at this car to buy it. Everyone I spoke to said to me, mate, that's a dang good car for the money. If it's as good as it looks in the photo, have it. Quite literally. And went along to have a look at it, bit cardboard torch, because I'd seen all the areas on forums where these rust, and I went over the whole car making sure that there was no terminal rust on it, because that means that it's going to be quite difficult to save it, and that's even if you're a good welder. So yeah, the mechanically wise, it was all okay. In terms of metalwork and bodywork, in terms of chassis and bodywork, the bodywork was showing signs of a bit of deterioration, and underside wise it still had some nice undersill on it, and I couldn't find any bad rot anywhere on it. So I thought to myself, well, I'm standing here looking at a bit of a gold gem here. So I took it for a test drive, was very happy with how it ran. Or say how it drove. It ran a little bit lumpy, and that was purely because I think it was running on some pretty dirty petrol, given the fact it was 3 years old. So but yeah, I took it home that day. In the adrenaline to hold myself together over while looking at it, I'd actually managed to completely overlook the bloody simplest things known to man, such as the coolant level. And on the way home I had to bypass the thermal switch on the radiator because basically there was nothing except orange dust in the expansion bottle, But yeah, that was one of those things where I learnt. So, but yeah, I got it home and spent the following week stripping and rebuilding the cooling system. I actually had to drill into the carburetor base because there's a cooling circuit, and it was completely solid with limescale, like it was hard concrete. So I used the longer of the two water pipes, put some water down it, left it for a minute, and literally spun a little like 1/2 mm drill bit in the hole until I had a bit of flow, and then I left it thinking, well, the pressure of the water system, the water going around the system is going to blow the rest out. So, and it quite happily did. So that's a bonus. But yeah, I spent the first week doing that, and I also got a full service as well. So I had nice fresh oil, nice fresh filter, and a week after I bought it to the day, I drove it 120 miles to the Renault UK in Rickmansworth for the Owners Club AGM, and to say that it performed beautifully was an understatement. For a car that had sat for 3 years and not really done very much and got an MOT the day I bought it, I was bleeding impressed, considering the fact that on the first drive home I'd nearly killed it. So yeah, that was quite a amusing bit of time to be alive to me. I was really living, as I call it. Yeah, it did really well. I managed to push it to cruise at 70, and it might sound a bit, whoa, what do you mean pushed it? On this car, fourth gear is the equivalent to a modern car's third, and it means that to do 70 you're in the top end of 4,000 RPM. So it does give it a good few revs and make it work a little bit, but it did push a load of fuel cleaner through the entire fuel system, get the oil running round nicely, and it just got a really good blowout really. So it was a hell of a lot better afterwards. It was originally more of a show car, and then as time went on I just absolutely loved driving it. The ignition system showed its age after a couple of months, because I'd done 1,200 miles in very quick succession, and I did rotor arm, distributor cap, points, condenser, a set of plugs. I don't think I did leads at the time because they're absolutely fine, but that gave it some really good reliability. The following year in 2017, the cooling system started to show some issues with the head gasket, and basically it hadn't got any loss of compression, which is what you'd normally expect, but there was a leak between a cooling gallery and a cylinder, and it was basically causing the whole system to pressurise up with exhaust gases. And that was proved with my friend Paul Cunningham at Renault Repairs in Brighton, Worthing rather. A trick he told me to do, which would take it to a MOT station, get them to put the exhaust analyzer in the top of the cooling chamber as it's running, and then what it's giving off, if it's boiling, it will just be steam, it won't register anything, but otherwise it will register with the CO2 emissions you should come out of the exhaust, and that's exactly what it did. So I took it off the road when I got it back to the house that day, and then spent I think it was about a month stripping it all down. So I think it took me about a week's worth of days, one at a time, sort of bit by bit, across a few days, take it all apart. And I spent the rest of that month giving the rock cover a downward clean up and respraying the pulleys, a few other little bits and bobs, cleaning everything up so it looked really nice. Soaked the cylinder head, that was absolutely perfectly fine, put that all back together, and I rebuilt the carburetor as well, because it was around all the old gaskets and all the old needle stuff inside. And later on, because it still wasn't running quite right, and basically you'd come off the motorway revving quite high, come down, and it would run really lumpy, and if you check the timing it would always come back as advanced. And following someone's advice, they basically said it could well be the centrifugal weights at the bottom distributor are sticking, so when it's running faster they fling outwards, and it basically advances the top half ahead of the lower half, and therefore advancing the timing. And then you have the vacuum advance that then pulls the points physically as well, but basically the centrifugal advance was sticking outwards, and it basically required me to take the entire thing down to a bare body and shaft, clean it all up, and then put it all back together with new grease, and it ran absolutely beautifully after that. I went for the MOT and it was spot on, to say the least. Yeah, so mechanically wise, engine spot on. Braking, steering, suspension, I haven't touched at all in the time I've had it. I've never had any cause to. It's flown through MOT as good as gold, and it's never had any knocks, rattles or anything like that that's made me think I need to check that. So I will be checking everything over, but as far as I'm concerned at the minute, there's no need to change anything because it's all okay. So, but I will be going through it all to make sure if there's something that looks a bit Paris like, it's not got much life in it, change it. No point scrimping, because otherwise you're just going to find later on after it goes back on the road that you got a bit of reliability issues. So yeah, the interior wise though, a little bit of wear to the binnacle top here. Apart from that, the interior is pretty mint really. The only bit is actually the piping here on the back of the seat. It's just a bit of I think it's vinyl plastic, and it's just typically the stitch, it's just pulled itself away from the stitching. And the foam in that seat, because I think that was the seat mostly used back in the day when it was daily driver for the original owner. The foam in that one is a little bit sort of worse for wear, so I will probably at some point get that seat taken apart, new foam, and have it all restitched, and yeah, just give it a bit of new lease of life. But while it's in my garage, back to that part of the conversation, the main focus is checking out the underside. I'm going to strip all of the old shuts off that was actually put on by the dealership that maintained it years and years ago. You'll strip all that off, see what we've got to work with in terms of any rust to deal with. It's never had any rust advisory since I've had it, so apart from what I can see on the rear quarter panels, which is pretty classic really because they always used to rust there, I don't know what to expect. If anything, it's probably going to be all the hidden spots where the Schutz is just holding itself up, covering it all over, but we're not going to know until we get started. So I'm just going to take you for a quick show around the bodywork to show you what's wrong with the bodywork. I'm not sure how much the bodywork I'll actually be doing myself, because obviously it's on the show and you don't want it to look dreadful, and my painting isn't the best, so yeah. Right, I'll take you around the car and just show you what the situation is on the bodywork.